Alder Wahalia?
Here.
Alder Heck?
Here.
Alder Harrington McKinney? Alder Carter?
Present.
And I see Alder Bennett.
Here.
Okay, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. Could we do a IT announcement?
Yep. All right, welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the committee, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. In this meeting, panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Panelists also have the ability to add pronouns after their names if they choose. Please do not alter the current naming convention. Simply add text after your name. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. Staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. President Boss, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Can we have a motion for approval of a minute, please?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any comments on the minutes? I don't see any hand raised, so it's unanimously approved. Next is a public comment. Tanya, I see there are 3 registrants for agenda item number 4, but I don't see any public comment for the agenda item number 1, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. Moving forward, disclosures and recusal. Any disclosure or recusal? I do not see any hand raised. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is agenda item number 2, file number 65688, appointment of Maitland Serhoni for confirmation as the Common Council Office Legislative Management System Specialist. Can we have a motion?
I move appointment of Madeline June for confirmation as Council Office Legislative Management System Specialist.
Second. Second.
All right, motion is moved and seconded. We have Maitland with us. Any question for Maitland?
I'd like to hear her voice and see her. Is she on camera? Because I'm on my phone. Maybe that's what it is. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, Alder McKinney. Maitland, could you introduce yourself?
Hi. Well, my name is Madeline. I've been living in Madison for about a decade now. My prior position before being given this great job opportunity, I worked in the state legislature for 4 years. I left recently because I was looking for new job opportunities, and this one popped up. And I honestly just love Madison, and I'm really looking forward to fulfilling my duties in this role.
Oops, I muted my own self. Thank you very much. Vice President Martin.
Madeline, thank you so much for introducing yourself and welcome to Team City Council and Team Madison. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Alder Heck.
Thank you and welcome, Madeline. Could you just remind us of what, assuming all goes well, what your schedule will be in terms of both getting oriented and when you'll start and things?
Yeah, absolutely. From the information I've been given, my start date is next Monday, June 7th. I'll be coming in person. And then from there, I think I'm going to be working with Alder Abbas in figuring out when I'm going to be in person versus virtual. There's going to be some virtual onboarding, but it's kind of to be determined at this point in time, which I'm totally flexible with. I completely understand we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So it's still in flux.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you, Alder Heck. So motion is moved and it's been seconded. If there is no further question, I will consider this as a unanimous approval. Welcome, Maitland.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Moving next, agenda item number 3, file number 65705, accessibility and equity, brochure analysis. Sarah.
Thank you, Alder Abbas. Let me make sure I can share my screen. Thank you, tech facilitators. Okay. So thank you for having me here this afternoon to talk about the accessibility and equity analysis of allowing video virtual meetings. I know that you have received the memo that was sent out. And so I'm going to go through this rather quickly so that we will have some time for some questions. So for background, since we switched to virtual meetings, we did not allow registrant video to turn on the registrants to turn on their video during their public meeting during their testimony. And this was due to security and privacy concerns. At the beginning of using Zoom, there were many Zoom bombings that were reported throughout other government entities, through school districts, et cetera. And we wanted to make sure that we kept their meetings secure. And then we also had privacy concerns of if we had video on, what were people going to be able to see in the backgrounds? Were there going to be kids running around? Were there going to be other things that perhaps were not appropriate? And so we wanted to just make sure that we were identifying that. But in late 2020, we did receive this formal complaint of wanting the video turned on. And the complaint said that the policy is discriminating against deaf and hard of hearing attendees since it prevents them from reading lips during public testimony. We came together. I talked to Norm Davis, the head of civil rights, and we identified a team to get together and to do a formal racial equity and social justice analysis. We invited Alder Abbas to participate, and we also interviewed the Deaf Unity of Wisconsin organization that supports and advocates for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. So this shows you who was on the team that participated. We had both Jason Glazier from Civil Rights, who is the accessibility subject matter expert for the city of Madison, IT staff, both our equity coordinator, Tanya Anderson and Joseph Shraven from the media team, and then Deborah Thompson and Zachary Commons, who both work very heavily on the registration and participation piece. And then we had Gabriel Ortega from Building Inspection facilitated, and it's just a fabulous job. So the key thing that came out of this is that there is really no one solution. Having one solution would not be equivalent service for anybody because nothing can substitute for one another. So if we were to just allow lip reading, that would not address all accessibility issues. If we had transcription, that wouldn't, nor would ASL interpretation. One of the Deaf Unity members perfectly explained it. They said that everything has to be offered for everyone to understand. So as we did our analysis, this was something that was really strongly that key concept of is that we need to have something that's for everyone. So we broke it down into 4 categories: the registrant video, meeting process, interpretation and transcription services, and then the budget estimates for transcription services. So for the first one, that registrant video, by itself, lip reading is not effective in virtual meetings due to the low quality of the video. You know, as video is coming in, sometimes it is delayed, and that would be actually rather distracting if that was the only thing that you were using. This must be optional is the key recommendation that came from this team for public registrants, since not all registrants are going to be able to turn on their video. There are times when I can't even turn on the video in my house if we're all fighting for Wi-Fi, as I have 3 kids going to school, and they are also on. So it's difficult at times. The considerations for allowing registrant video. Allowing registrant video would assist. It would also assist neurodivergent participants and participants with limited English proficiency in perceiving and understanding speech in meetings. It also allows participants to see body language and to connect with others in attendance. It also helps committee members to see registrants, and this may increase their perception of the registrant's credibility. And it also would allow for face-to-face interactions between participants, which may increase civility in meetings. There are also disallowing registrant video considerations that you have to think about. We still do have those security concerns that we are concerned about. Both the city and Zoom have made quite a few strides in lessening this concern, but it's still there. And as I spoke of before, the low-speed internet or people without cameras or people calling in would not be able to turn on their video. Allowing video may open up registrants to bias. And this might be due to race or physical characteristics. And there also might be a bias against those participants who do not turn their video on. And then we are still concerned about those privacy concerns. We're concerned about seeing children or other family members as part of that if they don't want them on. And then there is also the consideration of how registrant video is going to be handled between our type 1 and our type 2 virtual meetings. It will be inconsistent, and that might be for registrants rather off-putting if they're moving between these type 1 and type 2 virtual meetings. The number 2 consideration was the meeting process. So there were meeting process recommendations that were regardless that they identified that are separate from that of deciding if we allow registrant video. And these recommendations are broad changes that will improve meeting accessibility for many members of the public. And the key recommendation out of this is to reduce the number of committees. We have over 90-some committees. And the city really lacks the financial resources to support all of those meetings equitably. So these are recommendations for the meeting process. Reduce crosstalk by strictly following Robert's rules and also having the chair recognize speakers before allowing them to speak. Considering what participants should have their video on, who should have that video on. And then there was a lot around enforcement of agendas and when agendas are posted and making sure that they were done in enough time so that when a registrant needs to request services, they have enough time to do that and for civil rights to be able to make sure that they can get them the correct translation services that they need. And if it's also something that IT staff needs to make sure that they are setting up, that they have that ability as well. They also, again, reduce the length of meetings and then improve that process and training on referrals. We have referrals going to so many different things that at times it's really hard for a registrant as they have to move around from meeting to meeting and each time then ask for these different translation services as they're moving through, trying to make sure that whatever it is that they need to participate in, they are able to. Interpretation and transcription services. There are improvements to the city's interpretation and transcription services that, again, were recommended regardless of the allowing registrant video. And one of them is to provide live human transcription at all type 1 meetings and at all other meetings upon request. And then to also modify the machine translation resolution so that we can allow machine transcription. They also made the recommendation that the machine transcription must be a learning solution, so that as it's moving forward, it's learning to adopt to our different terminology, our different street names, etc. And that we make sure that this is provided across all possible distribution methods, and that the recording meetings that are transcribed should also have transcription for playback so that it's consistent, so that when a registrant is participating, it's the consistency that is key for them. And then to continue to offer ASL interpretation and then also Black Sign Language interpretation, as well as other sign language that is requested. And then provide an easier way for the public to request interpretation and transcription services. So the cost, the initial cost is not high. It's about $20,000. And the little asterisk here, this is based off of talking to one vendor. We would want to reach out and make sure that we do this correctly and follow our purchasing guidelines. And then annual costs, though, are what is the higher amount. You would have both hardware maintenance, the human transcription per hour. So at $125 an hour at 720 hours, that would be $90,000. If we were to do it for all transcription, that would be another $14,000. And then we would also have to do some Zoom integration. And these are total annual costs of $143,000. Again, this does not include staff time. And there would probably be an increase in those costs as well. But these are the costs that would be impacted on both civil rights budget and IT's budget. Another recommendation that they had is that costs could be mitigated by decreasing the number of committees and decreasing the length of committee meetings. So the key recommendation from the whole piece is that to improve accessible and equitable resident engagement, there would need to be a commitment to addressing one of the root causes that are a barrier for residents, and that's the amount of boards, commissions, and committees in the city. We should be regularly evaluating our existing committee structure and be ready to adjust it based on the changing needs of our community. The Task Force on Government Structure in 2019 identified the need for reductions of boards, commissions, and committees to provide a more accessible legislative process. And the city lacks that financial and staffing resources to support all meetings equitably. And what I mean by that is that everything that we're talking about here also needs to have some oversight. There needs to be the ability for staff to, so for example, if agendas aren't getting in on time, if agendas are not noting at the top the correct language, saying that you can have sign language services, translation services. If not all of these things are consistent across, that's very difficult then to navigate. We don't have the staffing resources to do that across all of our meetings. So how do we make sure that we're doing that? By looking at what is the root cause, and that is the amount of our committees. You have any questions for me?
Thank you very much, Sarah. We have a couple of hands raised. Sorry, let me turn on my camera. Alder Bennett, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for this presentation, Sarah. And I really appreciate the report because honestly, going into it, I was like, well, this seems obvious to me, but there's a lot of considerations that I wouldn't have considered before. So thanks. Okay, so I have two questions for right now. One is actually three. One, have you communicated with the county board as to logistically if we can use a similar process as they're using right now to allow participants to use videos during meetings, because I think their style of meetings is probably almost similar or almost the same as ours, and they allow videos. So have you had that communication yet?
No, and I wouldn't. That would be something that the Common Council would need to do. So what we do is support the decisions that are made by the Common Council. That's a great question. We can certainly look at having that conversation with council leadership and Dane County, but we are, different government entities, and there are different ways that meetings are held, and I think that there would have to be a lot of considerations before moving forward with following exactly with how the county does their meetings. But that's a really great question, and we can certainly reach out to council leadership and look at that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because it's to me similar. And then I asked this via email, so I don't know if I didn't see an email back, but what is the process now to like go through with at least recommendation 1 to allow optional video during meetings? Is there like a timeline that we have where we can get that up and running?
So I would again turn to President Abbas for that decision. That would come from the Common Council if this is something that you want to pursue. And then we can figure out what that timeline would be and how we would roll it out. And we could take into consideration, what that impact is. And I think it's a larger conversation for the Common Council to have.
Okay. And then lastly, I was wondering if you could touch on like how effective is machine transcription? Because in the report, it says that it really depends. It was like about 90% accurate for just English translation, but that accuracy goes down depending on whatever language you're translating to. So could you speak to that?
You know what? I'm actually going to ask if Tanya Anderson, who is tech facilitating, can respond to that, because she is the one who was doing some of that research.
Hi, Alder Bennett. So right now, there is quite a bit of difference. It has a lot to do with accents that people have, but also the terminology. So like, for example, Zach and I did some testing with the built-into Zoom transcription, which is not the same as translation, I will point out as well. And it doesn't know the word alder. It knows alderman, but it doesn't know alder. It doesn't know alder person. Zoom's also happens to not be a learning system, so we couldn't teach it the word alder either. So that's part of why we wanted that, because as with a learning system, we can get those rates to go higher as we use it, because we can teach it the terminology we use, and it can get used to the accents and the people that are in our meetings. So we were seeing somewhere between 70 and 90, depending.
So Zoom isn't learning.
It is not a learning.
And is that like what the cost would be to buy that machine transcription? I'm sorry, maybe I'm confusing myself.
Yeah, so all of the ones that we looked at in that estimate were learning systems. That was one of the prerequisites that we said of, okay, if we're going to look at what the price would be for installing this system, it needs to be able to be a learning system so that we can teach it our technology and think of how many Alder names we use, or the names of staff, or the city streets that we talk about in planning meetings and all that kind of stuff. It wouldn't know any of those words because those are very specific to us.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Alder Carter.
Thank you. Sarah, can you tell me if at any point did you or your designee confer with the Office of Deaf and Hard to Hearing with the Department of Health Services?
No, we did not.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for that presentation. My concern has always been for those individuals who are in situations where they are unable and should not and cannot have their video on, and putting them in a position of questioning why they don't want their video on. my concern is making sure that everyone is on the same level playing field and that we are not judging them by where they're located because of their video. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Alder Carter. Any further question or comments? Alder Heck.
Thanks. This is not a question for staff, just a comment. I'm thinking it may be related to Alder Carter's comment that maybe drawing in a few more stakeholders in this might be helpful. I mean, I think staff did a fantastic job, and it sounds like Deaf Unity gave some tremendous input, but I'm wondering if having Disability Rights Commission take a look at it might just sort of double check and make sure that there aren't communities who may not have been considered. I mean, I can't think of any, but it seems like it might be a good idea to send it to Disability Rights just to make sure we're hitting everything. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Heck. Alder McKinney.
Thank you very much. I want to ditto just what my colleague Alder Heck said. I sat for a short time on the Disability Rights Commission. They are a well-engaged body. I know Jason staffs that, and so he was on the original committee. But to have that to sit within that body of people who have a range of disability input would be excellent as well. And the reason that I say that is that when I sat on that committee at the new when we were talking about the new construction across the street, I was so excited about what they had done in terms of disability, of making it disability accessible. And one individual said, well, you know, we were at the elevator, and she said, well, that's fine, but then it's too high for me to reach. And so I had not even thought about those kinds of things. And so as we are, you know, looking at finding out the great mix, that would be a committee that I would think that would give a personal eye on what is needed and why. And just the capsule in our meetings, there've been a lot of people who said that, you know, we should have our cameras turned on. Has there been any direct contact, and this is a Jason question, for someone who has felt left out because the city did not have the capacity to have their cameras on, rather than just people speaking on their behalf? Has someone who's from that community contacted the city and complained about they were not, their services were not made available to them?
Sarah, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So as far as I know, no, I haven't heard of that. And I think Jason would have brought that to the team. He's been in, you know, direct contact with us, and, you know, was very active in speaking to the original complaint and having conversations with the person who put in the complaint, who submitted the complaint. But I will check Alder McKinney. I will ask him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Alder Bennett.
Just a quick comment. I think it's totally necessary, or it makes sense to send it off to Disability Rights. I feel like that's maybe something we should have done in the first place. But also I don't want to necessarily do it I think we should do it, but also keep moving forward with the recommendation number 1, because I don't want to, what am I trying to say? Slow down the process and still end up coming to similar recommendations However, I think they might be able to add to the conversation in the way that needs to happen. And this is like more just a question for everyone, and maybe it just shows to my freshman aldership, but I still feel as though I still don't understand fully like why or who or how council is going to come to this decision to like, okay, let's allow video. Is that something that needs to be done via resolution? I don't think an ordinance needs to change for that to happen. So, or is it something that we can just say, ask staff, like, can you do this? So that's mainly like what I would like to know.
Well, I will take a first stab and try to address that. I think so. The council leadership, the analysis in front of us, we can send to Disability Right Commission, and council leadership can look into that request and work with the staff. I don't see necessarily a resolution to tell the staff to do about the video, but we could work with the staff on this, and then Alder Bennett, we can get back to you on that if that sounds good to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Alder Carter.
Yeah, thank you. And I will be quick at this also. I think that the most important group we should be listening to is the deaf and hard of hearing. And that should be the foremost of our concerns. It's not whether I want this, it's whether that target group will benefit from this, and this is what they want. I'm going to switch gears here. Sarah, when you did the budget analysis on how much this would cost, and you had that per hour, are we looking at the 10-hour meetings at that? And are we looking at several people switching off during that transcription? Because the bottom line is we know how to talk. And so therefore, how does the vendors will accommodate us on those long meeting nights?
So for the transcription services, they would switch out, I believe, like every 2 hours. So we have made recommendations that there be 5-minute breaks so that we can do this. We did do this in the past, just so you know. I want to say that probably 20, maybe 18 years ago, we discontinued doing translation services because of the cost. That the Common Council made that decision, and we did pull it from the budget. But we had a process in place, and they would switch out about every 2 to 3 hours. So if this is something that we have done before.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any further question or comments on this topic? I do not see any hand raised. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you everyone who worked on this analysis, and really appreciate that for the great work. Let's move forward to agenda item number 4, file number 65569, recommending the Common Council approve the revised independent police monitor description. We have several people registered to speak. Let me check here registration. I will start with Anita Bharadwaj.
Hi all, my name is Ankita Bharadwaj, and I chaired the task force that drafted the job description and minimum qualifications of Madison's first ever independent monitor. I have spent much time thinking. I have considered the sides of folks who say that in order to make the position more equitable, to be accessed by women and BIPOC folks like myself, we must keep the educational and experience requirement to the minimum. I have also considered the side of folks who say that we need an extremely capable and educated person in this role, as this person will be directly responsible for bringing justice to folks who have been at the receiving end of use of force, like myself. After deliberating cautiously in my role as chair of Equitable Hiring Tool Task Force and as someone who has worked with legal and justice systems in 3 continents, I firmly believe that we must not compromise for the number of years of experience or education for the IM and must accept what Alders Rebecca Campbell, Shiva Bidar, and Donna Moreland initially drafted. Equity means not setting up folks like me, that is marginalized folks, up for failure. Equity means caring for their mental health and emotional and even professional health for folks like me and not have them do something they might not be able to do. IM is a position with class spec G21, which is the same as chief of police. If we are to evaluate chief of police and his department, we must hire someone who has comparable qualifications. As we all know, we would not accept the current suggested educational qualifications for hiring the chief of police and would in fact look for someone with at least the minimum qualifications set by Alders Campbell, Bidar, Moreland, and which the council initially approved. I also firmly believe that the job of IM is an extremely specialized job. If I would not let someone who hasn't gone to medical school to operate on my brain because getting medical education is very costly, I wouldn't let someone who has any less qualifications as the original drafted one to decide if I'm worth the justice or advocacy or not, and would not want advocacy from a person who may not be equipped to do so. The problem is the education system, yes. But the solution is not lowering the bar for folks who will be at the front lines to fight for us marginalized folks against a highly rich, organized, and resourceful department. The solution is to work outside of this issue independently to have free education for all, like Germany, or have extremely minimum fees in government schools like India. Doing otherwise is extremely short-sighted and harmful. We all know there are parties who want to see civilian oversight effort fail. There are folks waiting to say, I told you so. Waiting to say police department does not need oversight from folks who are not even equipped to do so. I do not want us to be a laughingstock. I do not want us to see this effort fail, because if it does, we, the people, may never be able to argue for decades why communities should be funded equally, if not more, and why more power should be given to the people. Therefore, I earnestly hope that we don't play right into the hands of those who want to see us fail, and in fact rise above it to empower the civilians with the best and the most equipped soldier we can get. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next attendee is Kitra Bernice. Keitha.
Thank you, President Abbas. If possible, I'd like to go last, as I'll be presenting all of our recommendations to the executive committee.
Sure, that's fine. I could take Shadera. Next is Shadera Kilfoy Floors. Shadera.
Thank you, President Abbas. I just want to say what an honor it has been to serve my community in this capacity as the vice chair of the first Police Civilian Oversight Board in Madison. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity and giving us this time to be able to present that. I concede the rest of my time to the chair, Kitra Bernice.
Thank you, Shadera. Kitra Bernice.
Good evening. My name is Kitra Bernice, and I serve as the inaugural chair of the City of Madison's Police Oversight Board. First, I want to thank each of you individually for your time today. And I also want to thank you for your leadership and approval of Ordinance 5.20, which authorized the creation of our Police Civilian Oversight Board. Thank you so much for authorizing and entrusting us to lead this work. Please know that as chair of our board, I have no doubt at all that the combined passion, life experiences, education, and dedication of our members collectively, I have no doubt that we can get this work done. Again, thank you for entrusting us to do this work. I wanted to first start with a high-level overview of our progress to date related to the independent monitor position description. First, our Police Civilian Oversight Board has facilitated over 25 meetings since our first meeting on Friday, November 20th, with our meetings averaging 3 hours. We have established 3 priorities for our board for this year. The very first one, which is completing the NACO training. NACO is the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. We have completed 2 of their 3 required 4-hour trainings, with our last training scheduled on Thursday, July 8th. We have also completed the City of Madison hiring process training, which has assisted us in understanding and developing the tools used to recruit the independent monitor. And lastly, our third priority is, of course, the hiring of the independent monitor and staff, which is in progress. And that work has been supported by the 2 previously mentioned priorities. Also, to take the first steps in hiring our independent monitor, we created an equity task force that was made up of 4 diverse members of the Police Civilian Oversight Board and city staff representing Human Resources, the Common Counsel Office, and the Department of Civil Rights. They were charged with assessing the independent monitor's job description using the city's equitable hiring tool 2.0. That task force alone met 8 times to complete their review and make the recommendations that are slated for discussion tonight. Regarding our recommended edits to the independent monitor job description, you'll note that none of the requested changes require edits to the ordinance 5.19 by which the independent monitor position was created. Our recommended edits do include primarily edits to further clarify the role and responsibilities of the independent monitor. Of those, we have on page 5, you'll see the removal of core competencies from the position description. That was basically a recommendation that we remove that because that information is also included in the job brochure. That includes more specific information about the ideal candidate for the independent monitor role. Most of the discussion held in the Equity Task Force meetings were regarding the education and experiences listed in the minimum qualifications section of the position description, which is on page 3 of the version of the document you all had. Mainly, some members felt that education should outweigh experiences for this critical role played by and for our community, and others felt that the opposite should be true, that someone with experience, especially experience working with and establishing relationships with our community, should outweigh education. The compromise that our task force ended with was recommending language that appears, the recommended language that appears at the bottom of page 3. So we're basically saying that in lieu of a specific degree, an equivalent combination of education, training, and experience shall be considered. So that was our way of reconciling that major dispute between 2 sides of a very heated discussion. Our next steps are for myself and members of our board to attend tonight's meeting to respond to any questions, comments, or concerns you all have regarding our recommended edits to the position description. And we're hoping that in doing that, we can expedite the approval process. We are also planning to attend the June 15th Common Council meeting, where discussion and a final vote on our recommendations are slated to be on that agenda. And we would love to launch our independent monitor recruitment and stakeholder engagement plans, which include our participation in Mayor Satia's virtual weekly briefing on Thursday, June 17th. In addition to, during the mayor's briefing, in addition to sharing progress and an update on the work of the Police Civilian Oversight Board, we also hope to request our community's support with the promotion of the independent monitor job description. And it would be great if that job position was posted when that virtual meeting occurs. So anything at all that we can do to expedite the approval process is sincerely appreciated. As you've previously heard, 2 members are here with me today. That is Vice Chair Shadera Kilfoy-Flores, as well as the person who served as the leader of our Equity Task Force, that's Anita. So we welcome any questions that you may have when asked. If I am not able to offer a response myself, I will identify a member of our team to respond to any questions you may have. Again, thank you so much for your time today. And lastly, I'd like to know what questions do you have for us?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Keitha. Any question for the attendees? Alder Fermin.
Thank you, President Abbas. I have some question for Keitha. It sounds like this was not an easy discussion, and you guys spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to modify this description. Could you give me a little bit more details on why all the competencies were removed?
Sure. The competencies were removed from the job description because they will be included in the job brochure. And it was the inclusion of them were just making the job description unnecessarily long, especially considering that that same information would be present in a different document that accompanies the job description.
Great. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Alder Fermin. Alder Bennett.
Thank you for all of you for taking the time to put into this job description that's going to be critical for the future of police oversight. So I wanted to ask a question to Keitha, as you were on the committee of like drafting this original job description. I was wondering the reason behind having the education requirements in the beginning, and because that is strike through, like what would be your recommendation on that education requirement?
While we're waiting for Ankita, can I just clarify that the position description initially was drafted by the Alder work group and not our equity task force?
Thank you, Keitha. I appreciate if we can keep the question to the person. If you
Yes, my apologies.
No worries. Thank you.
You should have a prompt to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. Now I have the prompt to unmute myself. So the question is, why do we have the current recommendation instead of the original one? Is because during the equitable hiring tool task force meeting, there were concerns that, as Chair Kitra Bernice pointed out, by some members, including myself, that we need experience and education both for this one. Even at the board meeting, when this was finally moved to the board, there were people, including myself, and I speak only on my behalf, who were also in favor of more education and more experience. However, knowing that we did not have the majority to get more experience and more education as was drafted by Alder Campbell, Alder Bidar, and Donna Moreland in the first place. This is what you guys have gotten so far. So this is what is the majority of the board agreed, not all of the board agreed. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Alder Bennett, your hand is raised. Do you have any follow-up question? Thank you. Alder Carter.
Thank you. My question is, since the brochure has one of information in it and the job description has another set, when a person is looking at or trying to decide to apply, are they going to be sent both the brochure and the job description? How do those two work together?
I believe.
Yes, I would like to defer to Karen, to Julie Trimble. I'm sorry, the human resources representative who worked with us on this project, to respond to that question.
Julie, would you like to respond to the question?
Yes, thank you. So when we create the job posting, that goes up on the city's website, and within that job posting, typically in the very first section, it does include a link for more information that will go then to that brochure. So anyone who is accessing the posting itself will have a link right there to move to the brochure.
And is it actually a brochure, or is it just 2 sheets of paper?
Yeah, it's typically a 2-sided document, so 2 pages.
Okay.
But we've been calling them brochures.
That's perfectly fine. My next question, Julie, since you're up, you might be able to answer this. The classification of this position is Comp Group 21, range 18. Can you tell me salary-wise where we are with that group?
Sure. Let me pull that up really quick. All right, Comp Group 21, range 18. The salary range is $103,636 to $139,909.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I do have one last question, and I'm looking at the necessary special qualifications. Can you tell me why? Yes.
If you don't mind to interrupt you, we just jump from question to attendees to staff. If we could have a motion and then ask that question to the staff.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Could we please have any other question for the attendees? I do not see any hand raised. Could we please have a motion?
I move, am I moving that we send this to council, the full council?
Moving the recommendation.
Yep. Move the recommendations.
Yes.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Question for the staff. Sorry, Alder Carter, for interrupting you. Please go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, this could be for staff. I did not be qualified to answer. Just concerned about the driver's license or the ability to meet transportation requirements and why that was crossed.
Alder Carter, your voice was very choppy. If you, perhaps you can turn off your camera and ask the question once more time.
Yes, because for God's sake, I don't want to be choppy. I just wanted to know why the driver's license and was striked out and the ability to transportation requirements was striked out. And well, let's just go with that.
Julie or HR staff, Harper, anybody like to answer that, please?
Julie, if you feel comfortable responding, that would be great. I wasn't involved in the equitable hiring tool process. I'm assuming that edit probably happened somewhere during that process, or maybe Ms. Burnett can respond.
Yeah, I think probably it would be a question for the Civilian Oversight Board or the executive team.
Sure. So if it's okay with the body, can we please allow that question to ask by Keitha? I don't see any objection. Please go ahead.
Will someone please repeat the question, the specific question that was asked?
Alder Carter?
Yes, I'm curious on the section that states necessary special qualifications that the driver's license, I'm not going to read the whole sentence, is crossed out, and the ability to meet transportation requirements. A reason why I'm asking that is also in this document, you talk about outreach. So I'm just wondering if this person is going to be assigned a driver or how they're going to do that outreach.
Thank you for your question. Yes, now I understand. So the reason that possession of a driver's license or the ability to obtain one prior to the date of hire was crossed off was because members of our board felt strongly that in order to get from one location to another, one does not have to be the driver of a car. There are services like Uber or Lyft or others that the ideal candidate could utilize to fulfill those needs. They didn't necessarily need to have a valid driver's license or obtain a driver's license prior to the date of hire, considering that those other options existed.
And then I have one more follow-up. Would that be included in an expense account for that person?
We did not, in response to this in response to removing that requirement, we did not authorize any additional funding for the person selected in this position. That would be his or her private, or I should say personal expenses for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Alder Harper.
Sure. So the language that you just mentioned or referenced, Alder Carter, is pretty standard language in most of our positions. And my apologies, I wasn't a part of this the process, but I think the way that language is written actually addresses the concerns that the body has. It's either having that valid driver's license or being able to meet those needs. Being able to meet those needs would also give consideration to if someone's catching a bus somewhere, if someone was using Uber, whatever was needed to get there. So that's the reason for that language. Positions will require you to do some traveling. We don't want to limit the position if someone doesn't have a driver's license or an inability to drive. We just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable competing.
Thank you, Harper. And I can see Ankita's hand is raised. Perhaps you want to also add up some information. Can we also unmute her?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for unmuting me. Whenever I was chairing the Equitable Hiring Tool Task Force meeting, this question came up about the driver's license. And I argued that a lot of undocumented folks and non-citizens cannot apply for driver's license. And because you want to make this position equitable, we should not keep this position away from those people. Post which, I think Julie told us that the city gives us free bus passes and access to bicycles, which can be used by this person without having to account for Uber or Lyft. I hope that satisfies the questions because their office, the Office of the Independent Monitor, will be around the area of the outreach of people or the officials, and it can be actually just walked. They can just walk there too as well.
Thank you for adding more explanation. Thank you. I have one quick question, perhaps either for Julie or Harper. Harper, for our standard process for City of Madison for G21, what type of education requirement usually we use, just like as a benchmark, like, minimum requirement?
Sure. Thank you, Alder Boss. I was hoping I'd have opportunity to speak to that a little bit. A couple things I would like to address, if you can bear with me for a little bit. Just a quick recap of where we were. So approximately a year ago or so, when we were having these initial discussions in regards to the education requirements levels, we worked with a few of the alders. We put forward some language, and I believe that language referenced something that we would typically have for Concrete 21 positions, something along the lines of generally, the individual would have X number of years of experience. Such experience would usually be obtained after graduation with a bachelor's degree. Some positions, I believe what we received from a few of the alders, they wanted to have a law degree in there. I'm familiar with the equitable hiring tool, how that impacts some of our positions. I assumed that there would be some pushback. And I believe where we landed at that time was we had a bachelor's degree, but a law degree or a master's degree would be preferred. And that's not unusual for a Concrete 21 position. What I wanted to make sure that folks are aware of, I think a lot of the discussion that folks have been having is centered around minimum qualifications. And with minimum qualifications, that's just giving someone an opportunity to compete. It's a competitive process. So it's one of those type of deals where it very well may be moot. You could have someone start off, yes, they may have an associate's degree. They may have 20 years of amazing experience. This is someone that you all may very well want to get to the table. just the way these processes are, they're really competitive. I think the position that most of you are more familiar with, for example, is the Common Council Chief of Staff that we filled in 2018, 2019. Competitive process, numerous applications. The gentleman that was selected had a PhD without that being a requirement. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's just how a lot of our positions shake out sometimes. I did appreciate, my apologies, Ms. Keitha. I do appreciate a lot of what she had to say. There's this belief that if we lower minimum requirements, that's the passport to getting more diversity. And I don't think we have to compromise the expectations. I want to set folks up for success. So part of the equitable hiring tool should be looking at the positions, looking at those actual needs. And while I do see, I've heard that folks were considering having an associate's degree. I can imagine that someone could possibly get to the table with an associate's degree if they have some amazing experience. But for the most part, what we're looking for, if we're differentiating between like an ideal candidate or the minimum qualifications, the ideal person most likely will not just have, it's not an either or when we talk about experience and education. The ideal person will have both. Whoever we end up hiring, most likely they're going to have a decent level of education and some extensive experience just to get that far in the process. I'm sorry, Alder Boss, did I answer your question?
Yes, please. That's great. Thank you. Any further question for the staff? Just one quick question, Harper. Just a definition of a post-secondary degree, which was used in this. What exactly is post-secondary degree?
Well, I believe they were taking some recommendations from, I'm spacing the name of that organization that they work with. But usually we're talking about like a college degree, something along those lines.
It could be 2-year, it could be technical college, right?
Possibly. I'm not sure what the intentions were of the, I believe they were borrowing language from other places. So I don't want to speak for in regards to what their intentions are. That's not language that we'll usually identify a bachelor's degree from an accredited, college or university, or we'll specify in a NACO, yes, thank you. I just got a message that it's NACO. I believe they were giving some recommendations. Some folks were borrowing language from NACO as well as other municipalities that had similar positions.
Right.
That we typically will use for a professional or position at this level.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any further question for the staff? I do not see any hand raised. So the motion is, there is a motion on the floor and there is a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Alder Bennett.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of echo what Keitha and Harper were saying after following the PCOV meetings. And I know that a lot of time was put into the equitable hiring task force. I agree that this isn't really, that this shouldn't be an either or for the minimum requirements. But I also agree with what Harper said. We want to be setting this person up for success. And it's not abnormal to have education requirements there. And I also agree that we shouldn't, I also know that education serves as a barrier. So that decision was highly controversial during these meetings. And I sent it over to Attorney Haas to start drafting up, but I wanted to I hope this is the right time, but make a motion for an amendment to say that this person would have a bachelor's with 4 years of relevant work experience, master's with 2 years of relevant work experience, or 6 or more years of relevant work experience, barring the education requirement.
So let me repeat.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, let me repeat your motion and please correct me if I get it right. So your motion is to change post-secondary to a bachelor degree with 4-year experience with a master degree of 2-year experience and without any academic degree, 6 years of experience.
Yeah. Well, if they it's like bachelor's or master's. Or
Bachelor for master's.
if you have a master's and 2 years of regular relevant work experience.
Right. And then what was the 6 years? No experience?
And if you don't have the educational experience.
Oh, no. Okay.
Or post-secondary educational experience.
Okay. So post-secondary 6 years, bachelor 4 years, master 2 years.
Yeah.
If there is any second on the motion, Alder Heck, is there a second on the motion?
No, it's a point of order, actually. I just wanted to verify that Alder Bennett can make such an amendment. I'm sorry, but I can't remember exactly all of our members. Oh, she is a member, so I ignore that. Sorry.
All right. And second to a motion? I will second the motion. Discussion on the motion. Alder Carter.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I'm in agreement with the motion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I will also speak to that. I'll also vote in favor of the motion. I have seen the job description of G21, including the recently we hired the water utility general manager, and there was a bachelor degree. As some of the attendees and as Alder Bennett mentioned about, we all want to see them successful. I think it's important for us to set those bars right. So I will also support that. Alder Heck, please go ahead.
Thank you. I see that Kitra Bernice has her hand up, and I wondered if it would be appropriate for her to speak, even though we're in the middle of deliberation.
Is there any objection from the body to get a comment from Keitha? Please raise your hand. I do not see any hand raised. Keitha, please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to just offer a couple of comments regarding some of the discussion that happened at the Equity Task Force regarding the minimum qualifications. While I understand the need and desire to ensure that the person hired into this position has the academic background to support the requirements of the position, it is also important to keep in mind that there are members of our community, due to disparities in the attainment of academic accolades, may not have obtained a bachelor's degree. And one of the members of that equity task force, who is very active in the community right now regarding police, regarding serving as peer support specialist, also serving to intervene at the scene of crimes. More specifically, I'm talking about Anthony Cooper, who mentioned the many years of experience he has because of the fact that he does not have a bachelor's degree, although he has all of the relationships with city officials, community groups, and other organizations. He would not be qualified for this position, which was why we changed it from a bachelor's degree to post-secondary education. Again, keeping in mind, as we're talking about making sure this job is equitable, obtaining a bachelor's degree is or does present a significant challenge for a significant portion of our community or others who otherwise would be qualified for this position. And as Harper mentioned, because of the other qualifications and other requirements for the position, most likely the person who is awarded this position or the finalist for this position may end up having both of those requirements. We did not want to eliminate people only because they did not have a bachelor's degree. We have a lot of people in our community who have some education, but have not achieved a bachelor's degree for whatever reason. And this is requiring a bachelor's degree closes the door on all of those people who already have relationships built with members of our community, other communities, police, as well as city leadership. So that was really why we decided to leave that requirement off the table.
Thank you, Keitha. Alder Bennett.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify it. I know the motion might have been a bit confusing, but I wanted to clarify that this is not like, will not exude people that do not, that, or exclude people that don't have a bachelor's degree. Whereas in the motion, it says if you do not have a post-secondary degree, then you'll have 6 years of relevant work experience. So that the person that you referred to would be eligible to apply for this position. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Any further discussion on a motion? I do not see any hand raised. Those, I believe, if there's any objection to the motion, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I will consider as a unanimously approved. Alder Heck, I believe you want a roll call. Correct. Karen, could you please do a roll call?
President Abbas?
Aye.
President Abbas, aye. Vice President Martin?
No.
Vice President Martin, no. Alder Lemmer?
No.
Alder Lemmer, no. Alder Bennett?
Yes.
Alder Bennett, aye. Alder Wahalia?
Aye.
Alder Wahalia, aye. Alder Heck?
No.
Alder Heck, no. Alder Harrington McKinney?
Abstain.
Alder Harrington McKinney, abstain. Alder Carter?
Aye.
Alder Carter.
Alder Carter is
non-voting. Alternate. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I got carried away with the roll call. So we have 3 ayes, 3 noes, and 1 abstain.
So motion failed.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I think I did another thing. Hold on. Is the chair voting?
Yes.
In this case? Okay. Sorry about that, everyone.
All right. So motion is failed. Now we'll be back to the main motion. Any objection to the main motion? Please raise your hand. I do not see any hand raised in objection, so the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, future meetings and topics, I just want to mention a couple of things. So we saw this body worn camera report. So we are planning to bring this on June 15th. I just want to let the CCEC member know. A couple of inquiries I got about this agenda item, so it will come there. On June 18th, we are having a special CCEC meeting. The mayor, not special, Karen? June 9th, correct?
I believe June 8th.
June 8th. All right. Yes, and the agenda will be out very soon, and it's very important meeting to have all the updates from the mayor, and as well as that in that particular meeting, we're also going to discuss about council in-person / virtual / hybrid structure. So you will receive an email shortly from me as well on that too. So look forward to see you all. Any comments before we adjourn? Can I have a motion?
Move adjournment.
Second. Thank you. It's moved and second. Thank you all. We'll see you at 6:30. Take care.